And we are live on the Metal Lab today. We are talking with the director of the ROC with HC Realms, TCGplayer. This is Howard Brock. Thank you for joining us, Howard.
Glad to be here.
So I just want to get right into it. Not a lot of people in our neck of the woods are familiar with the ROC or the ROC, the Realms Open Championship. How about a little history of the idea behind the ROC or the ROC, as someone was calling here?
Sure. As most people know that are familiar with ROC, we've had a little bit of a history with Dragon Con, and that's really where ROC started from, and that's where our roots are. Dragon Con, I myself have been a sponsor of Dragon Con for several years, even including when WizKids disappeared. There was a group that ran Dragon Con every year on their own accord and contributed. I was one of those contributors, and I became more and more involved with the people at Dragon Con each year. And those guys are my friends. We have kind of a community between Georgia, Tennessee, and Alabama here, and there's a group that we've all seemed to go a lot of the same events with. So we've developed friendship from that. Anyway, so I supported Dragon Con because it's the nearest con that's in my area, and we went there every year. Tony from HC Realms started sponsoring Dragon Con, and we ran our own little championship. And the guys that were going there, Tony, myself, a lot of you guys will know Terminator on Realms. He's our head judge. It's Terry, and a few other guys. We all would talk after Dragon Con, and what we envision is we want to have I guess the best way to put it is a pro-style circuit similar to what Magic and other places, other gaming places do. And we thought it would be neat if we could bring that in. There was nothing at that time being offered by WizKids, even in organized play, that was out there, and we even wanted to go further with it into being a professional type event. Now, when I say professional, that doesn't mean that you have to be a professional to play. If you go to a Magic tournament, there's hundreds of players there. They're not all professional, but it's a professional style event. So that's how we started. We just started talking about it, and we said, hey, let's do this. There's several of us that met after Dragon Con. We went and had dinner, and somehow or another, I don't know if it's just because I had more time available than everybody else or that I just took the bull by the horns, but I ended up being kind of the head of the group. And we started off with WizKid support, and we started off running 6 of those the first year. And going into the second year, we were not. It was very bubbly, I guess is the way to put it, whether we were going to get WizKid support or not. And we wanted to run a lot more. We wanted to take the next step. I mean, all we did the first year was run 6 major events and a championship at Dragon Con. So we were at Gen Con. Tony, Typhoon on Realms, told me that he ran into TCGplayer and that I might want to go talk to them. So I sat down on a Sunday with TCGplayer, who already runs Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! And had an interest in running Heroclix. And we sat down at the table and we had common interests. And from there, we blew ROC up into what it was last year and into this year. And TCGplayer pretty much came in and guaranteed. They told us this was the catch for us. I mean, what brought us in? We wanted to run a bunch of events. At that time, I already had applications to run what we called regionals at the time. We changed those to super qualifiers. But I had enough applications, enough interest, and I felt like there was enough on the table that we could make a big commitment. And TCGplayer told us that they would guarantee $15,000 at Dragon Con, regardless of how many tournaments that we ran. So if it flopped out, they were still going to stand by and do this. It didn't flop out. We did very well last year, and we have more slated for this year. And we've changed our program, but that's the history of Rock, the short version, I guess.
Excellent. It's really exciting. Now, so you had this set of tournaments already, and then TCGplayer came out and helped you get bigger. Was the fact that you were working with the guys at HC Realms kind of the thing that got their attention, or were they on the outside looking in already?
No, just to tell everybody how the structure works and what everybody gets out of it, because there's always this thing that's lingering that we're making a lot of money and that we're all getting fat and that why does it cost so much to play and yada yada, and I'll explain that a little bit better. I think that's kind of important for everybody to know. First of all, we, the Rock Board, the people that run, that's the most visible and run everything and make the rules and make the decisions and so on and so forth. And we don't make all decisions. Decisions are kind of dependent on what area we're talking about. If you're talking about money, if you're talking about prizes and stuff like that, there's more people involved. The actual rules and how we set it up and everything, the board decides that. And then I approve the super qualifiers, or the regionals, and do a lot of that stuff all on my own, but with board backing. So we don't make anything. We created something that we wanted to play in and also run, because there was nothing out there. So we kind of created something for us to run, to play. It's not all of us play, but we like playing too. All right. That being said, what is everybody's interest in this? Our interest, the Rock Board, the people there, our interest is only to have created something that we like and we like to play in, period. That's all we get out of it. Tony, HC Rims, what does he get out of this? Tony wants to drive traffic to Rims. He wants to expand the Rims name. To him, Rock isn't just Heroclix. Heroclix is obviously our big goat, is the biggest part of Rims for him, but he's looking at one day having something more than just Heroclix. It's Rims Open Championship. It's not Heroclix Open Championship. So that means one day there may be other games that's part of the whole program. Okay, so he's driving traffic to, and he hopes from that to be able to sell some items. For example, I know that he's got a map pack coming out very soon, and that map pack is going to be, now, if you're familiar with Rock at all, you know that one of the best things that we give out are our maps, and they're the rubber, foam, cushiony maps. Everybody loves them. They're limited edition, and we change maps every few months, and you may or may not ever see those maps again when we change. So if you get one of those maps, you got something that's got value that we may never reprint that map. Okay. Now what he's coming out with in the map 4-pack is those 4 maps that we ran the first year, but they're going to be paper. They're going to be printed in a pack so everybody can have. They won't be so he hopes he makes money from that, obviously. If he sells any Rock here, HC Realms, T-shirts, whatever from that, that's where he makes money. So he's hoping to make money there. He's also hoping to have, honestly, a convention one day that's going to be a Rock convention, and it will be all the games, all of those, all put together. These are long-term goals down the road. Now, what does TCGplayer get out of this? Okay, they do not make money from the events. All the money that we collect it pays for, obviously, prizing, and pays for all the parts that we have to have, our overhead costs, shipping, and everything else. What's left over goes into our championship pool, that $15,000. So that $15,000 is sitting there usually by the time we get to the end of the year. If outside of that, there's also redemption, which I want you to ask me about in a little while. And also that money is also part of redemption. And finally, when there's enough money to cover all of those things, we pump that money, that excess money, back into Rock, meaning that we would buy more prizing to put in kits later on. We would maybe run a bigger event, so on and so forth. Okay, that being said, why does TCGplayer do this? Well, it's pretty simple. It's the same reason they do Magic. They don't make money off of Magic events. They don't make money off of Yu-Gi-Oh events, but they drive traffic to their site, and people buy Heroclix, buy Magic product, buy Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's why they do this.
Yep. So it's a little. They get a fair bit of advertising out of it because their name's all over it, and then everybody, you guys get the chance of getting your word out. It's mutually beneficial. Makes a lot of sense to me. But you got my curiosity. What's redemption?
Okay. Redemption is, have you played in a rock tournament just out of curiosity?
I have not had the chance yet. We are going, our first one's going to be the one in March in Windsor, as a matter of fact.
Okay, I'm going to actually give you a piece of breaking news that nobody's heard yet. These are last year's, I'm going to put one up where you can see it. This is, let me get one that's worth some value. Oh, there it is. Okay. And
there we go.
You see that okay?
Yeah, perfect. Keep it right there.
That is a point card, and it's 20 points.
Right.
Okay. Now, what happens when you play in rock events, the top 16, sometimes the top 32, depending on what event or whatever that we've got, you earn points. And obviously, the more points that you get, the higher you get, more points for placing higher. Okay. Now, what are these points? Well, these points, you can sell these points cards. Okay. You can sell them to somebody, but what they're meant for is to play in the championship or to play in the next event higher up. For example, a super qualifier. A winner of a super qualifier gets X number of points, but he also can get a bye into the regional finals that's near him. Okay. Now that means when he gets a bye, that means going through all the Swiss play and being in the finals. We'll take up to 4 people per regional. We don't want to run 16 super qualifiers and have 16 people show up in the finals, and then what's everybody else playing Swiss rounds for? But anyway, that's the point. But somebody that's in a regional, that wins a regional, actually qualifies to the championship in Atlanta that we're going to have this year. It won't be at Dragon Con. But that, you're almost guaranteed money. If you're in the finals at our championship, you're pretty much guaranteed money. I think you may have to win one game out of whatever, but if you finish in the top 32, you win money. And you're almost guaranteed to be in the top 32 if you get there. So that's why these are worth money to people, because you also can qualify by buying points. You need 20 points to be able to play in our championship. That's our earliest round. The way that works is we have round 1, round 2, and then round 3, more or less. And round 1, you need 20 points to enter. Well, you can play in round 1, and if you're in the top X number of players, you move on to round 2. The top X number of players, you move on into what we call our finals, round 3. And so, I mean, I think what we're calling this year is quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. Okay, you can take points and buy in at different spots. Okay, 20 points to get in just to the quarterfinals, and I'm going completely off memory right here, but let's say 100 points to the semifinals and 200 points to the finals. So technically, somebody, I mean, we talk about this, some people like it, some people don't. You could buy your way into the finals. So these, if you can get 200 points. But those people that sell these cards need to know their worth. And what I've been seeing, the 200 points will probably sell anywhere from $300 to $400.
Okay.
So cards have value in that way. Now, the original question is, what is redemption? Because what do these cards mean to somebody that doesn't want to go to, has no intentions of going any further, just wants to play in a qualifier locally, and that will be all they play in all year. They get their points, and okay, what do they do with this card? Outside of selling it to somebody, what can they do? Well, we've said this before, but I actually know that it's coming out now. Redemption is almost upon us. Our redemption program hasn't been in place. Um, they already have it in place for Magic. And what you do is you go into TCGplayer, and there will be a list of prizes there, and you will be able to exchange your points for those prizes. Okay, those prizes could be hats, they could be dice, they could be um, maps, any number of things. Now, what is about to occur, and this is the breaking news that nobody knows. These the card that I just showed you is specifically designed for Rock Heroclix. Okay,
Right.
the new cards that are coming out are going to be the same cards that are being used for Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh. In other words, there's crossover. Uh, all of our cards will match, and you'll be able. You can take Magic cards and cross them over into Heroclix, and Heroclix cards and cross them over into Magic. So you can buy Magic product, Yu-Gi-Oh product, Heroclix product. You can cross over. Now, what we hope player they have us to be able to use these. You can't redeem everything that they have. Meaning that if they're selling a zombie chase figure, somebody's got the zombie chase figure in the store. You can't take your points and read them and buy it. You have to select. You have to select from their prize pool that they offer for redemption. We hope, and I've been pushing that they change that, and there's I think a positive direction that one day you'll be able to take your points and use them to buy anything in the store. I hope that's not that it's on the table, and I hope that it occurs.
So, in a similar way to the old Versus System Pro Circuit, these points are good to get you into the tournaments. Like back in the day, Versus had you didn't necessarily have to win the Pro Circuit qualifier. You could actually collect points for being in them, and then eventually get to the Pro Circuit tournament. But these points will also have a value on TCGplayer's website, where kind of like we'll say going to the smallest kids in my youth, Kool-Aid points, where there'll be stuff that you can get on the website and trade in or cash in the points in order to get that. And then even further is that as a Heroclix player, as a Magic player, as a Yu-Gi-Oh player, it's a 100% universal system. And if I'm understanding this right, if I'm doing really well in Heroclix and I decide you have one of the like the Dragon Con tournament for Magic, I could use those points and qualify for that one?
Correct. Well,
it's a pretty cool system.
That's the way I understand it. I haven't seen the entire program, but I don't see how it can't be that way. And the only reason that I say that is because the cards are going to be identical. So if the cards are identical, how would they be able to tell where they came from?
Right, exactly. Now, is there going to be a way that they manage taking the value of the cards at face value? So I go to Dragon Con, but I've spent my card online. Is there going to be a control mechanism for that, or am I going to have to redeem it online and then give my username to kind of manage that?
You mean how do you redeem the card?
Just in the sense that I can redeem the card online, but I can also ideally redeem it in person at Dragon Con. Is that kind of how?
You just turn the card in.
Okay.
When you go to our championship, you just turn the card in person.
Right. Okay. Now, we were talking a little bit beforehand, but you kind of briefly mentioned Mexico, and let's share that with some of our viewers because we do have a very international audience, to say the least, because YouTube.
Well, first of all, Rock is global. It's not confined to the United States. We ran in the UK last year. We also ran in Argentina. I know that Argentina is running again. I think the UK is. We also have something going on. Let's see, it's Argentina, and there's some other place that's got a super qualifier that's coming up. I want to say it's Brazil, but I know that those places already have stuff. But obviously, the two biggest places to go to is Canada and Mexico because we're adjacent to them. So Canada, we had a little bit in Canada last year, and this year we have quite a bit going on in Canada. I think 4 or 5. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think 4 or 5 super qualifiers and a regional. Okay, and that doesn't include all the smaller events. Mexico already has an approved um, has already approved super qualifier. That's in Mexico City. Okay. While we were working on this, it was kind of interesting how this came about. We're always looking for expansion, and there's a guy, his name's Fernando, that comes into Gen Con every year. And most people, and I've grown friends with him. Most people will recognize him because he often dresses as a Mexican wrestler with a mask on. So anybody that sees him, that's who I'm talking about here. And and Patrick, who's on our rock board, which I think everybody knows who that is. He's the world champion and the rock champion.
Yeah.
And he's on our board. He also went to the Mexican Nationals last year for Whiz Kids. And by the way, did not do all that great down there.
Something you failed to mention.
I don't even think he finished in the top 32. But wow. Anyways, he went down there and he developed some contacts. And so he and I were talking, and we said, let's see what we can do in Mexico, because it's a big Heroclix area down there. And sure enough, we made the contact, and we ended up going through Fernando. He contacted some people down there, and we immediately got a venue in Mexico City that said they wanted to be part of this. Within a few days of that, I got an email from the group that distributes all Heroclix for all of Mexico, in Mexico, and they want to put rock in every store.
Wow.
And so we are working on that right now.
Excellent. I guess that would be an ideal goal for everywhere. I mean, have a rock in every store everywhere.
Correct. Well, here's where we're really good at. We're good at the places that, and Canada is probably a good example of this, that WizKid seems to ignore. It doesn't have the big events, doesn't get the attention, and there's plenty of places in the States. Probably what developed a hub last year was Kentucky for us. I didn't see it coming, but Kentucky embraced Heroclix and rock because they don't get anything else. So those places that have not been getting a lot of attention are the places that embrace us and have huge turnouts. Canada, Mexico, Kentucky, and a slew full of other places like that. I would say probably the South. South in general doesn't get a lot of attention from WizKids. Don't know why, but we don't. Mm-hmm. And I'm from Alabama, just so you know.
Yeah. Wow. So now this is one of the things I'd actually been mentioning is, are you noticing that when you start bringing rocks to an area that's not getting ignored, are they starting to get more attention from WizKids?
I haven't really seen that yet, but there will be some people that will tell you that the WizKids Opens was a copy of us. I don't agree with that. The reason I don't agree with that is because I've had quite a few conversations with Justin, because he did support us in the beginning, and he did allude me to what some of his plans were. And the WizKids Opens have been in plan for a few years now. It's just he's been setting it up. This isn't something that they reacted to rock for. This is something that if rock wouldn't have been around, he still would have done. That being said, I think that he was able to use rock to maybe rock pushed him a little bit, but it would have still happened. And I don't even know that it pushed him. I'm not saying that it did. I'm saying maybe because we were having success, it nudged them along to do things. And if it did, I think that's great, because we're not anti-WizKids. We are not anti-WizKids Open. We are not trying to compete with what they do. It seems to work out that way sometimes, but that's not what we want to do. We rather have a working relationship, and we rather WizKids Open and rock tournaments are totally different animals. One is sealed. Ours is constructed. We're more meta-based. We run things a lot different. Our pricing's a lot different. There's cash involved. There's a championship involved. It's just they're totally different animals.
So, excellent way of dispelling that myth that's actually been crawling around in our area here. Now, one of the issues that I'm finding with Canada is I think this is a lot of people who hear or who know about the events wonder why isn't the Rock in certain areas, and why isn't and let's take it up north to Canada. Why isn't it up here in a great amount?
Well, there's a misconception by players and venues because I hear this all the time. I see it on rims all the time. Hey, put one here. Hey, put one there. Hey, put one here. We want to put them everywhere. This isn't us deciding where they go. It's you guys, venues, players, deciding to bring a tournament in. We hand chose regionals, okay? We hand chose those because we wanted to have a working relationship with the venue and have some experience with the venue and know that they would work, okay? Super qualifiers were applications received from venues. We didn't choose those cities. We approved them, but we didn't say, hey, we didn't throw a dart at the map and say, let's go there. What happened was Owensboro, Kentucky, saw the Rock, got the Rock information, and they submitted an application and said, can we run one? And we said, yeah, sure, let's do it. And then they have like 70 players show up, but we didn't choose that; they chose it. And Canada's the same way. We've had some applications from Canada. Canada's grown this year, obviously, but on the smaller event level, there's not even an approval cycle. If you want to run a qualifier, or if you want to run one of the smaller events, a win-a-map, or a trial, all you got to do is go to the TCGplayer site and buy the kit. You buy the kit, TCGplayer contacts you by email. They schedule it on their event calendar. They then post it in Realms. I approve it in Realms, and you're up and running. It's not complicated.
Excellent. And I actually, while you were having this discussion, I went through HC Realms, went to the Rock tab on the HC Realms page, went and saw that there was a host and event link on the left, and I'm sitting here looking at the page of the different types of events they could run.
Exactly.
So part of it has got to be a lot of it's got to be part of the organizers of the venues themselves to actually take it upon themselves to look into these events and run them themselves. And from the looks of it, the event, they don't seem exceptionally hard to run. It's up to the venues to do it, it seems. So I'm kind of pushing that, like, hey, fellow Canadian venue runners, here it is. This is how you do it. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And I'm not going to lie, myself and Amber have actually had a great deal of thought put into possibly running a rock event ourselves. Of course, the financial front end has been the difficult part. But probably looking into one of the smaller events now, maybe in conjunction with the store that we're actually in. So, and I've also been polling my area a lot in order to discuss it. So I got the noise out there, if you will.
Well, Rock, I mean, I'll also say you got different levels. I mean, some of those levels are meant just for like your local group. If you got 8, 9, 10 players, and you want to run a small rock event, there's nothing wrong with that. We have events designed for that. There's not a lot of effort that you have to do with that. You buy the kit, you charge $10 for entry fee, you pass out the prizes. You can even run it in conjunction with the WizKids event. For example, if WizKids, if they've got, they're giving out their prizes, their op kit prizes this week, run both of them together. I mean, just charge $10 and throw the extra rock prizes out there. There's nothing that you do not have. The rock does not have to be unique be it a standalone event. It can run in conjunction with WizKids Op. Okay. Now, that being said, when you step up and you go to meet the super qualifier level, you can't just. I'll say this also. My experience has told me that venues have better experience with the super qualifier level than do conventions because they promote it. Why? Because they have an investment there and they have to promote it because they want the players to come in. But you're not going to run. We had a guy last year who did everything at the last second. He was in a high trafficked area, but he did everything at the last second. He didn't promote it. He didn't advertise it. And he just thought that by buying the kit that people would show up. And it was a disaster. You have to plan these. The bigger events have to be planned. They have to be start advertising a few months in advance. You need to let your players know. You need to contact the. I ran one myself. I'm in Huntsville, Alabama. Okay, my venue, honestly, on a routine basis, it's 4 or 5 players a day. I mean, on a Sunday, and then when we have the bigger events like World Light, it's 10, 12 to 15 players. But just your regular events, it's not that many that show up. I don't know why. That's just the way that it is. Well, I ran a super qualifier, and we had 50 players. Okay, they came from all over, but I spent some effort advertising, contacting my friends in Chattanooga and Murfreesboro, and which is in Tennessee, and Georgia, and Central Alabama, and I put ads on Facebook. So when you run these events, you have to be prepared to advertise them if they're a big event, because you have to let people know, and you have to let them know in advance. You can't decide to run this in 3 weeks from now and expect that everybody's going to make plans to come.
Yeah. So, awesome, very informative information, or very informative. To get all this information now out to the public, and in a voice. A lot of time people don't have the patience or anything to read this. So thank you for sharing that information. I want to go now to kind of a personal question of my own. Patrick ran the gamut of your tournaments. He went absolutely nuts, winning and placing in a lot of the Rock tournaments.
Yes.
And then went on to take his success and win Worlds and Team Worlds and your tournament. Has he become kind of your trophy or your, it's like, hey, the best players made it the Rocks.
Well, there's some truth to that, and if you were to go even deeper, and if you were to look at the top 16 that was at Worlds, you'll find that there was a lot of Rock champions there and a lot of Rock players. And Patrick will tell you this. Well, first of all, I've known Patrick for a while, okay? And Patrick's a very good player. But there's a lot of good players out there. There's a lot of players that are as good tactically as Patrick. The problem is, what they fail to do is you have to be able to play against high-profile competition on a regular basis. Patrick did that, so he was able to see lots of different kinds of meta and know what lots of players were able to do. He had more experience going into those tournaments than anybody else because he took the time to gain it. That's what we've been preaching. I guess that's what we're trying to move towards, and what we want Rock to be is we want. It needs to be the ground that people learn to really play the metagame and play the game better, and you gain that experience in Rock.
Yeah.
But I'll also tell you this: if I've been in Vegas and I had to bet, I would have bet against him doing any of those things. I would have never ever believed that he could have done what he did.
Well, that was the other thing. When I saw him play in Canada, I started to realize this is. I'm not gonna lie. There's a air of hesitation in my mind. Like, I found out that Patrick worked to a certain degree with the ROC, but then I met him in Canada at a WizKids run event. So this was independent of anything that I could possibly consider a conspiracy theory. And I actually watched him in action, and it changed my perception immediately. because this wasn't just an ROC event that he was doing well in, or the Rock event he was doing well in. This was a full-blown event. So he was a legitimate player. Great guy. I got a chance to meet him in person and talk to him because he'd been a fan of the show as well. So, but all in all, I mean, what I do find with this game, and especially in my area, it's very common. The casual guys are the loud types, and what I like about the Rock is it's a place where people who enjoy trying to win, to say the least, or to play really hard and get something out of it can go. Just it's kind of one of those things. I appreciate that the Rock exists because I find in my local events, just everybody expects me to come to a tournament and not play very hard.
Well, I think you can take that a step further because I have that problem too. Is I like when I go to my weekend tournaments. Now it's contingent on what we're playing for, but just your regular tournament, I don't like to build that meta team and go in there and wipe everybody because it's not fun. I mean, for the most part, we run no tactic tournaments at the local venue because somebody's going to get upset. One person that runs it and one person that doesn't, somebody gets upset, and it makes it rough. I mean, I actually create most of the formats for our local tournament, and I try to create things that keep people in line, that don't make it so crazy. And but now, just like you just said, when you go to a rock tournament, the gloves are off, so to speak. You can run whatever you want and have no inhibition about it, and not feel guilty about doing whatever you come up with.
I apologize for winning, guys. Excellent. Now, I like to have guests like yourself. I've been a part of a big movement on improving the community lately. I don't know if you saw my recent video in regards to some particularly nasty comments that got made on the internet. And I don't know if you saw my discussion with Brian Rupp, but
I saw some of this, Brian.
Is there anything you'd like to bring up in regards to the general, community as a whole? I know I go on HC Realms all the time, but lately I've been avoiding the forums, and I feel kind of bad because your group is related to HC Realms to a certain degree. But like, I can't blame HC Realms itself as a person or the operators of the website. I kind of, to a certain degree, say, hey, the community's got to cool it. Is there anything you think the community needs to do as a whole with regards to its internet personality? In person, Heroclix players are some of the best people.
I definitely will speak there. First of all, how long have you been playing Heroclix?
When did Infinity Challenge come out?
Same length of time that I have.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I want to point out to people exactly what HC Realms is. Okay. Back in the day, and I used to be a judge. I was a level 2 judge for Heroclix, and I was working towards being a higher level. And WizKids had their own site. They had their own forum. They had a lot of information there. And there was a sister site to that, HC Realms. And if you went from one to the other, you almost they used the same setup. The forums were the same. The pages were the same. Everything looked the same. The only difference between the two was that there were certain things allowed in HC Realms that were not allowed in the WizKids site. WizKids is very protective of their brand, very protective of what is said. They also they did not allow the selling. They did allow trading, but they did not allow selling of Heroclix. They were very restrictive. So, in a sense, HC Realms was the Heroclix free speech site to go to, and they both flourished. In fact, it worked so well that as a judge, I had a judge tag in the Heroclix site, and they were able to verify that on the Realms, and my judge tag went from one to the other. So it was nice to be able to go to Realms and be able to to criticize the game sometimes and say things that you didn't like there. Now, WizKids went belly up and that site disappeared. In fact, they lost all of that information. It's a shame because there was a lot of good stuff on there. There was a lot of good articles. There was a lot of things. If you remember like I do, it's a shame we lost that data.
It was one of the few places I had to talk Heroclix.
Yep. So that everybody that was left went to HC Realms. WizKids died, and HC Realms gets a lot of credit of saving the game because it was a community where we all were able to hunker together and keep playing and support the game, and I think was a major reason why NECA purchased that, because they had a captive audience, so to speak, a captive customer, so to speak, sitting there hungry for the game. So, but we still had the ability of free speech. So now WizKids gets up on their feet, and now HC Realms is the primary source where people communicate. But let's go back. What does WizKids not like? They do not like. They don't like the criticism. They don't like some of the stuff that goes on. Well, that exists in HC Realms. So it's not their site, though, so they can't control that. And the site's based on free speech. So it's a catch-22. I mean, if HC Realms was to come in there and try to monitor completely free speech, we would since be killing the site for what it was made for and what it gives us ability for. So do you have people that go in there and monitor it, and is rude behavior sure it is, because I'm also a moderator. I don't do much moderating, but I do see what the moderators do, and they do the best of what they can within the rules. To be honest with you, a lot of them would like to do more, but Tony Typhoon has principal values of what HC Realms is supposed to be, and we allow free speech, and that's what it is. It's an area of free speech. That doesn't mean you can curse. That doesn't mean you have to be mean. It doesn't mean that you have to insult other members, and that's what they try to control. And yes, there's too much of that, and there seems to be specific areas of the country, specific players that get off on that. That's what they're there for. And we talk about it all the time behind the scenes, and we would love to be able to those players to tone it down. And we talk about all the time that we would like to get rid of some of those players, and that may come one day. But that's why that's also why I think that you've seen some separation between WizKids and HC Realms. That's why the judges, the oranges, have left Realms and went elsewhere. That's why you don't see some of the information that we used to get that came from Heroclix not on Realms. That's why. And so, again, it's a catch-22. Realms can either choose to be exactly what WizKids wants them to be, which would be what would be an all-controlling site, or we can choose to keep free speech. So that's what it is.
Absolutely. And I'll never disagree with the idea of being able to criticize, but as long as it's constructive in my head. I mean, I think it could be becoming an age with age. It's just, when I was young, I'd immediately get angry and to the internet. Well, I mean, it would take me a while to connect to the internet at that time too. But
well, I remember those days.
But yeah, no, I've always liked HC Realms as a backup source, and their units section is still the first thing I always touch when I'm building an army, especially once your collection gets too big. It's just all there for you. So I've always been thankful of that, and it's good to hear the opinions of pillars of the community like yourself, where all the differing opinions. And I wouldn't say your opinion is even different. It's just more or less pointing out the fact that jerks are being jerks, but free speech is fine.
It's when you start monitoring free speech, it's where do you draw the line?
Yeah, exactly. So, in a whole, I'd like to thank you very much for joining us. I'm running out of time here. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Maybe something about the rock itself, or anything big coming up with regards to it in the near future?
we're at the end of the year. The end of the year tends to me to be a little bit slow, and then it starts picking up in springtime. But there's regionals, there's super qualifiers, there's stuff coming up in Canada. There's a lot of things that I'll start getting out there. I'm a little bit behind right now. I've been overly working, so a lot of articles that have not been published yet will be published here in the next few days.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much for joining us, Howard, on the show. It's been a pleasure, very informative, and it's great to hear from outstanding members of the community like yourself. For those of you watching and haven't yet started subscribing to Card of Magica's live stream on Twitch TV, that's twitch.tv/cardofmagica.tv. They do a live show every Sunday where they're going to be playing Clix, usually more casual games, not your hyper meta, but they're fun to watch and they're great guys. And they're the guys that ran nationals up here in Canada. So, and I've heard from them that they are planning on doing it again. So thank you again very much, Howard. And that's been the show for today.
Sounds great. Make sure you send